The only country in the world I've lived in, and I lived in 8, that you really don't need a car.
Hello everyone, my name is Adu and this is Ready Go Expat. So if you're considering moving to China as a teacher or as a student or on a business visa and you're worried about the cost of living, you don't know what the cost of living is like, then this video is for you. Some of my friends back home ask me, is China really that cheap? And they say this based on the products they buy on AliExpress, which is fine. But the real cost of living in China is not like the products from AliExpress. So I decided to ask some expats who live in China the question, what is the cost of living like in China? These expats that you're gonna see in the video, they all live in Nanchang, the capital of Jiangxi province. And in my opinion, Nanchang is like an average city. It's not like the tier 1 cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, but it's also not a very small city. There are about 5 million people in Nanchang, okay? So that's a small average, it's an average city in China, not among the big ones. But also, I'll also compare in this video the prices with the most expensive city in China, which is Shanghai. So at the end of the video, I have some charts which I'll compare the price of like Nanchang and also the most expensive city in China. Ready? Go.
So the cost of living is great. I mean, for me, it's been great because when you are teaching, you make usually an income that's higher than the average person. And so the cost of living here is quite low, rent is quite low. And so if you know how to budget a little bit, then it usually works out really well. You can travel, you can save. It's one of the biggest reasons why it's nice to work in China.
Compared to where I'm from, the cost of living is a bit higher in terms of groceries. I would say it's like 20 to 30% higher than in my hometown, but the cost of rent is approximately the same. So I didn't struggle that much with this part. It's a small Siberian city with a population of around 700,000 people. It's called Barnaul.
I would say if somebody is not extravagant, it's very cheap. But if you are extravagant, it can be very pricey. But yeah, I would say it's cheap.
Living in Nanchang is very affordable. I find that the salary that we are paid as foreign teachers in Nanchang are relatively high compared to the average salary for a Chinese person. And this means that we can enjoy a pretty good life without spending a lot of money. So there's definitely a good relationship between income and outcome here. To give you an idea, you can easily have a meal for 10 yuan, 15 yuan, a decent sized meal, but also you can treat yourself to a much more sophisticated meal for maybe 80, 100, 150 yuan, which, if you do the conversion to Western currencies, is still a very, very affordable meal.
The fact that I live in a city that is very inexpensive is the primary reason why I have spent 4 years in China. I live in a city that I think when I came over, my salary was roughly the same as what I made in the States, but the cost of living is like a third. It's just absurd the amount of disposable income I have. I did not just spend it. I was able to save money, but certainly if you don't go to like a larger, if you don't go to Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, if you don't go to like a larger urban center, you can really save a lot of money. Things are incredibly inexpensive here. Even if you're in the major cities, it still doesn't feel as expensive as like living in Shanghai or spending money in Shanghai does not feel like spending money in New York. even if you like put everything on scale. But I think that foreigners tend to get very good salaries here, so I think that's part of it. Also, we're not earning like what the typical Chinese person earns. So you can do very well financially in China. Yeah.
Ridiculous, man. I think it's well, first of all, it's the only country in the world I've lived in, and I lived in 8, that you really don't need a car. You can go on public transportation to anywhere. I mean, Didis, which is similar to Uber or to Grab, it's really cheap, really efficient, and your salary never finishes. Well, I think it's a very good relation between salary and cost of living.
Well, in my city, I live in Nanchang, it's quite good. Like, what I pay for my flat, for food, for traveling, yeah, compared to Spain or to Europe in general, it's really, really good. I mean, living in Nanchang is cheap, but that means China. China is incredibly big. So Beijing, Shanghai, like my friends living there, they are much more stressed with the money situation than me.
Well, I've not lived in bigger cities, but the places like Nanchang, I think the cost of living is good. It's like compared to how much money you make, it's pretty good. It's really, really good. So it makes life easier in China. You can afford to do a whole lot of things. Like back home, there are a whole lot of things I cannot pay to go and skydive back home. Back in China, like I can do that.
Relatively cheap, especially compared to my country. It's very affordable. Oh, rent is very affordable. Food, Chinese food is super cheap, so that's really great, yes.
And what is expensive? What could be expensive?
Food could be expensive if you buy Western food. Rent could also actually be expensive depending on where you live. You could pay a lot of money for rent.
Oh gosh, what cost of living in China? Oh my goodness, I think I paid about 20 or 30 kwai for 3 months of water. It's super low. I mean, sometimes my electricity gets a little high because I've got the TV and stereo and running, and along with the AC and some other things, washing machine and lights and what have you. But the cost of living is very low. Oh yeah, there was this guy from back home who told me he had been a soldier. He said, when you go to the jungle, you become the jungle. Don't try to act like you're in New York, but you're in the jungle. It's like, if you live like the Chinese way, go eat where they're eating. Go, drink the soups and eat the noodles and the barbecue and things like that. If you're eating how they're eating, living how they're living, there's an opportunity. You can save a tremendous amount of money. I mean, it's hard to put into words.
Well, I'd say that the city you pick to live, your eating habits, and if you have or you don't have to pay for rent, these 3 things will drastically affect your cost of living. So for example, in a supermarket, you have the local brands and international brands. The local brands are usually half the price of international brands, or maybe a third of the international brands. And that includes cleaning product, dairy products, beer, anything. But if you think of fruit, vegetables, and meat in general, not beef, but chicken, fish, that's reasonably cheap, I'd say. But also restaurants, for example, if you want to eat in international restaurants, and that even includes KFC or McDonald's, the price is at least double the price of local Chinese restaurants. But when you come to China, as a student, for example, accommodation is really cheap and it's usually on campus. If you come as a teacher, as most expats in China come to teach in China, English, for example, then your housing will be provided by the school, or they're going to give you a monthly stipend for you to pay rent. And here is where you can see the disparity between the larger cities and the smaller cities. So I'm going to include here a chart where I'm comparing the prices in an average city, a medium-sized city like Nanchang, and the most expensive city, which is Shanghai, and the largest city in China. And if you want to check the cost of living of any other city, like around the globe, go to numbeo.com. You get their detailed price of rent, products, transportation, everything. And if you'd like to know any other things about the cost of living in China, please leave a comment below. I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you next time.